俺の足はアスファルトを離れ鳥になる場合
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Welcome Back to What is Going On. Today we're going to do a short episode before I go to the beach to explain what we've been doing the last couple times. So, here is a picture of the map, and the map in Chrono Break has chunks of time scattered across the map. So, time has basically become place as well. Like a section of the map will be 1020 AD, and then this map overall, whoopsies, this map overall would be, given the keystone designation, which is the dimension. This is the dimensional coordinate. It's pretty easy. Anyway, that's how the map looks. And say, for instance, some kind of incident, some kind of monster or encampment is too strong for your party here. And if you can happen to, there may or may not be a time gate. It depends on the severity of the incident. Due to anti-annihilation energy, the severity of the incident I got something to show you guys about that. Sure. This is totally not it. Come on, man. Why is it so hard for me sometimes? Here we go. Alright, I'll read this part out loud. Anyone studying time gate science may observe their tendency to appear a short time prior to major extinction events. Which is true. They are actually, it was because of the way the plot in Chrono Trigger needed it to happen. But essentially, you've got time gates always appearing before something terrible happens. So I figured that combined with anti-annihilation energy, as mentioned in Chrono Cross, it could be like anti-annihilation energy is a planetary force that prevents major annihilation events, like catastrophes. The anti-annihilation is like these blue gates appear. Typically to like another point in time. I don't know why on that, but anyway, in this case, because Luca does not believe, she doesn't subscribe necessarily to what Atropos believes about time gates. Atropos is like hardline believes that anti-annihilation energy is responsible for the time gates, and the planet is just like a clockwork machine, and when this amount of life lost is going to occur, then the time gates will appear to kind of like what happened in Chrono Trigger, where heroes or some kind of other planetary force, that being our party, was like drawn to the time gates and somehow managed to avert the catastrophe. Right? So that would be the function of anti-annihilation energy as a theory. Whereas Robo is all like, hey, I think there's some entity controlling it. He's not saying that's for sure it, but that's his suspicion. Which I don't even know if that's like a right place for his character to be, but he's mentioned it before. So maybe he's not like it's definitely an entity, but he's like it could be an entity. Anyway, Luca's in the middle, and she's like it could be both. They're just both talking about two things that happen, the same thing that happens, but they're just talking about it two different ways. But she basically looks at it as like anti-annihilation energy is life's safety switch. Okay, next slide, please. By either reasoning, it follows that whenever a gate appears in the break, the people on the other side are about to befall a catastrophe. So that's what we have with what we were looking at before. Anti-annihilation. I wanted to point out one particular. It's hard to spell that. Annihilate. Oh goodness. I think this is the one we want. So, time gates will appear blue if created by the natural forces of anti-annihilation. Man-made gates appear red. This is the part we wanted. The part that we're going to study about how these are the time gates in Chrono Trigger. And here are the corresponding massive catastrophes that happened. Reptile extinction in 65 million, the Fallen Continents disaster in 12,000 BC, the Human Mystic War in 600 AD, in which we can also presume that in this, on the original timeline, Lavos, or not Lavos, but Magus lost his life. You know, this is on Dimension Prime, the one that they diverted in Chrono Trigger. Then you have 1000, which has a question mark. See, that's where the player enters, which is kind of, it's a weird question mark to be here, but can I just get maximize on this? Maximize. There we go. And then, so this is a question mark, and this is kind of like a glaring, what about this question for the theory? But a theory can have questions attached to it and still be a good indicator of truth, just because you don't have all the answers. Like maybe there would have been some crazy catastrophe in 1000 right after the beginning of the events of the game if they didn't get involved in the game. Who knows? Maybe there was like a... Oh. But they're definitely in 1999, then the Day of Lavos for sure, and 2300. The human extermination at the hands of machines. That's questionable. That could have gone on for a while, but yeah, I'll say okay. So anyway, these are the... Now, because of the way the story was, these were the places where, you know, time gates appeared in the game. And that was because the story needed them to, right? And that's why Chrono Trigger has been called a series of climaxes, because you're kind of always getting to a place where something bad is about to happen. But we could flip that on its head for part 3 and make it so that now it actually, something that was serving the story before, now the story serves it. And it's like where the story springs from it, where now you have time gates and there's always something bad about to happen behind them when they appear. And that's thanks to an anti-annihilation energy, as was you know, introduced in Chrono Cross after Chrono Trigger, when they didn't even know, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so here you have these parts of the map where they don't always have to be right next to each other. In fact, I think the designation, where is that? Dude, I can't find my designations. Oh, because I think it's, never mind. You won't care about that boring stream stuff. However, I can do this. Okay, so they don't always have to be right next to each other, but this is Keystone 1020. This is Keystone 700. There is some kind of major threat up here in the north. And your party is strong, but not so strong. Oops, I'm pointing at the wrong thing. This is your party. I can't handle Slash doing that right now. I'm going to switch to the old pointer. Okay. Your party is trying to battle this creature, but it's not strong enough. Eventually, the creature does something terrible, and this creates, or shortly before it does something terrible, rather, a time gate will appear. And you can proceed into this time gate. And you come out over here. Now, the time gate doesn't always have to be there. Like, maybe you happen upon this part of Sans Time Gate. Maybe you wander upon this earlier on in the game, and you do what you're about to do. And this never even happens on this part of the map. Okay, so you actually stumble upon these monsters while they're, 320 years earlier. And you're fighting them. Okay, so we're battling these guys. Something that looks similar to this. You've got like a Final Fantasy 12 simplified gambit system at play for the characters who are guess. You can control 3 for every arbiter that you have. So part of the game is a quest between you as the player. Say you have like, 10 characters in your roster, but you can only control 3 because you only have one arbiter. So you're trying to, it behooves you to seek out the other storylines so that you can get these, amazing individuals to go from your guest roster to, well, I guess you can cycle in. You can play as all of them whenever you want, but you can only play as 3 at a given time, and the rest will be auto-quested. Like, let's say, the first time you encounter your boy, he's auto-quested. So it would be, you'd have to have an arbiter in this case. Sorry. Let's just say that it is. The most likely one would be Janus in this case, Magus. Okay, so because you have an arbiter, you've got, Chrono is in your party. He's a recruited guest. And so are all these people too. But you're going with Magus, and once again we have the old game mechanics now being a springboard for the story. So now the rule of like 3, before it was, memory constraints, that's why 3 entities could pass through a time gate, whatever, story reasons. But now it's like you can use that to your advantage to actually enhance the gameplay and put these kind of arbitrary rules in place. Because you want limitation and a buildup of suspense and freedom of mechanics and stuff to ebb and flow more towards freedom as you play the game and do stuff. Like, say you get Shala, now she's an arbiter in your party too. So you have this huge roster, and now you're all running around as a team. It's doing like it's Final Fantasy vibes. Not Final Fantasy. Yeah, Final Fantasy 12 vibes. You're controlling it, but you're only controlling 3 of them. The other ones running around with you are on Final Fantasy 12 auto-quested status. See, he's on auto. So you can bring him out into the field and they'll level up, or you can, anyone that you're not actively is in your party is on auto mode. But I do have to go to the beach today and I have to leave soon, so I want to wrap this up pretty quickly. Let's just review other stuff that we did and bail on this as fast as possible. Okay, so you've got your party going here, and they do a pretty good job. Okie doke. So now you've got an actual encounter. So let's say that this is what that encounter looks on the map that we were just looking at. And so, you know, this goes down and you do a good job. Oh, I wanted to point out that the field type thing can return from Chrono Cross, but it's simplified. You don't have to set anything. It's either just neutral or the field type will be an element. So right now we got lightning. So Chrono is going to be at an advantage. What was I going to show? Let's finish off this concept first. So you go through and you eliminate the threat down there. Then okay. Here we go. One final example. The time gate appears before the catastrophe because of anti-annihilation energy. You go through, you defeat the threat before it popped out, and then it's gone when you go back to that part of the map. Simple as that. Time attack, success. All right, let's review the other ones we did last time, and then I got to go to the beach, and I'll be back in a week. Equipping the Frozen Flame on a character will make them an Arbiter for 2,000 battles. So the Frozen Flame is like all of the major items in the series are now key items that any character can equip. So one theme is kind of like taking the huge, massively important stuff and then just making it like putting it next to all the other ones on the item selection screen. So suddenly you're just interacting with these things in a much more casual way because you are actually now badass because you've been through 2 games and the storyline is at that point. But anyway, so Bob here equips, this is a party that you have down here, and Bob is the Arbiter because he's had the Frozen Flame equipped on him for 2,000 battles. Sick. Here's a brief look at talking about the bonded units. So in the case of Migo and Gigi, they're actually a singular unit. And then in the case of Kid and Gil, they're bonded until side quest is done. And then they both revert to Arbiter status after that. So that's like a bonded Arbiter party. And you can get them by doing the This is actually set in 1030 in another world when you do the starting scenario where you begin as Kid. Now this is cool. The demi-humans worship the Black Dragon. Its death at the hands of a human sent their culture askew in Chrono Cross. They armed themselves with elements and declared war on the humans. So for the last decade, in another dimension after Chrono Cross, there's been like this holy war from the demi-humans trying to get revenge for the Black Dragon's death. So that's where you kind of pick up those two first time through. So it would appear like out of the blue. After you game over like 12 times, then suddenly you just get this random start. So that's kind of how theirs appears. Okay. So once again, progressing the plot by doing certain things and changing the conditions of the gameplay. If you destroy the Frozen Flame by facing Pico, then you're in no Arbiter mode, which means that you can control everyone. There's no more limits on party composition. Basically, the rule of controlling 3 people is done. You can still auto them if you want, but you know. In this case, this is just showing how Luca begins as a guest. And then after you complete chapter 16, I think it is, of the Dusk of Time quests, after you complete this quest, then she's recruitable. And all I gotta say about that is thank you for joining me today. I think we've wrapped everything up. Let me just make sure. Did that. Did that. That. Yeah. I think we're golden, bruh. We got 2 more videos left. We got this one. This is a short one. Oh, this reminds me. I did want to show you. Yeah, this just shows what the world map would look like. Now time zones are reduced to continents, and what used to be time zone is now dimension. And we will end on... No, we cannot end. I wanted to show, like... Yes, this is it. Perfect. Okay. So you're on the map, and you're in trouble. You're calling for help. And you're in another world, and you get... What the heck is happening? Oh, that's just like what it would look like when you shift maps. If you have a frozen flame or any other kind of cross-dimensional travel thing, that's what it would look like. What is this video? I have... Wow, okay, talk about... Okay, man. We're gonna find the one, though. Okay, this is the one we wanted. So here you have 3 parties departing from home base. In basically what's the broken dimension. It doesn't have a name. That's the break. So you're departing, and one of them gets in the epoch, which has been retrofitted with the frozen flame and or ash tier, which is like a frozen flame that Luca built that's not corrupted, and departs for another dimension. Did you see that? Let's review. Oop, disappears into a different dimension. I'll show that one more time. Because honestly, I thought that was a much longer clip. Yeah, here it is. Alright, same thing again, but the long version. Pay attention to the top. They're going into another dimension, or, you know, a different dimension. It might not be another dimension per se, since that one actually is a particular one. Dimension 2, I think. Alright, they're taking a long time this time. There they go. And then they're appearing here in another world. Alright, but then, ooh, they get a distress call. Get a distress call from another party that you have on a different region of the map. An uncontrollable distress call that happens sometime in gameplay. So they're taking off. They're going back to their dimension they came from, where they find this party being pursued. Being pursued by scary things that are too high for their level. And so what's going to happen is they get the news and they come in from another dimension and straight up deal with the issue and protect their homies. So that is sort of how dimensional travel would work. That has been the broadcast today. Thank you so much for joining me on this wonderful day where I'm going to the beach for a week. Oh, the music was by Flovey. Can't forget that. Thank you, Flovey, for making this awesome song.